justice for Beauty Stab is long overdue. Making a sequel to the Lexicon of Love would have just been like treading water.
This is my favorite ABC record. Does that drive you nuts?
Thank you very much, John. Every single ABC album is like one of my children, you know what I mean? I love them all, but I don't know how much love Beauty Stab received back in the day. After the Lexicon of Love, people expected the band to run in this direction, and it was very important for us to go in that direction.
That was then, but this is now.
The album starts with, why make the past your sacred cow? I guess you've changed in how. That was a very direct mission statement, was it not?
Yeah, it was to myself, really. Yeah, that was then, but this is now. In a way, we should have just done the Lexicon of Love 4 more times, you know. And I love Sade, you know, she's refined her sound from, you know, Your Love Is King onwards. But with ABC, you know, I'd grown up with Lou Reed and David Bowie and Sparks and all those great chameleons. I mean, years later, I'd wait like everybody else to see what the next Prince album sounded like, you know. So that fierce sort of feeling of competition, of experimentation and change was important visually and musically, definitely. Especially in those manic early days in the early 80s, yeah. It's all in the manifesto. That was then, but this is now. Living in the present and moving forwards. And in the early 80s, there was a sort of very experimental feeling amongst the bands. You know, you'd made it from Sheffield on West Street, performing shows in front of Cabaret Voltaire and the Human League and Def Leppard. In fact, our whole audience initially was just guys in bands.
Yeah.
So they would come to the shows and they go, chorus is good, but I don't like his shoes. You know, it was kind of like the toughest crowd you could ever play to. We played That Was Then, But This Is Now live in the UK a lot, and there's always the moment where there's a lyric in there that got critiqued at the time and still is.
I wasn't going to bring up Apple Crumble, but go ahead.
Yeah, help yourself to another piece of apple crumble. My grandma used to cook apple crumble, you know, and make tea to avoid reality.
That's how I interpret it, though. Yeah. I don't understand what...
Can't complain, mustn't grumble, help yourself, you know, have another slice of cake, mate.
I understood that in high school. I understood
But I love playing the song 40 years later, where there's sometimes 20,000 people kind of going, help yourself to it. They kind of wait for that moment. With the Lexicon of Love, we had this idea that we were recreating Vegas in our own minds, and the glitz and the glam of The Look of Love, and Poison Arrow was there. Came back off tour, we got back to Sheffield, and it just felt, Sheffield just looked black and white, you know, it felt time, and it was in the air too, guitars, pre-Smiths, pre-REM, and it felt like right to write songs that were kind of grittier, you know, more abrasive in a way. And kind of, not just, there were some love songs on Beauty Stab.
Love's a dangerous language. The drama, the gravitas, the rock guitars, but with tongue planted firmly in cheek. ABC always had a subtle but very present sense of humor that many seemed to miss at the time.
With Beauty Stab, Roxy music, when I listen to it now, 40 years later, it's probably the most English album we've ever made.
Right.
It's kind of political record, but it's also got the Roxy music stamp through it. And in fact, on drums, there was Andy Newmark, who played with Roxy and Sly Stone. And Alan Spenner played bass on it. It was brilliant when I listen to it today. You know, I go back and listen to the work a lot of people, we collaborated with a lot of people, Mark White, his guitar's fantastic, Steve Singleton sax, but we wanted to strip things back a little bit. I don't know why, really. We were just kind of seeing how far we could take the audience with us, I suppose, yeah. And it went in a kind of slightly, not that we'd ever be a rock band, but it went in a slightly more rock direction, yeah, I guess.
How much of
our version of rock.
Right, but how much of that was Andy and Alan? Because you have these weird time signature changes, like in Love's a Dangerous Language and King Money. Was that their influence, or?
Not so much. I think it was more, I love the arrangements on the Roxy music where you don't quite know where they're going to take you, especially the first 4 or 5 albums they did.
Right.
No, we were kind of fairly contrary. We were trying to push it with a song like Love is a Dangerous Language. Yeah, it's kind of Body Heat, the movie, in the lyric, but also how much you can twist and turn in an arrangement,
Right.
you know. Because at the time, yeah, that's just what happened. You know, we first started out, we'd walk around Sheffield and local environs telling everybody we were the future of rock and roll. Sign a record deal and suddenly we had to do something.
Right.
So with Trevor Horn and Gary Langan, the Lexicon of Love came alive. But obviously once you had success, the keys to the sort of the candy store open, you know, so we were free to make the kind of record, whatever record we chose. So it was great to be able to say, you know, Andy Newmark, would you play drums on a record, you know? The Power of Persuasion, it's got a kind of an opening guitar lick, which is kind of from the Rolling Stones songbook, kind of the honky tonk women, Jumper Jack Flash songbook, I guess, in that kind of genre. But for me, it's Diamond Dogs. Yeah, I mean that's Bowie's take on the Rolling Stones, but for me it was Diamond Dogs. I grew up listening to Diamond Dogs over and over again as a kid.
It's so funny.
That was my friend.
Never
as a
made
teenager.
that connection, and now that you say that, I hear it totally.
Yeah, it was definitely about how you become famous. You know, how you advertise yourself, you market yourself. You know. And Beauty Stab, we wanted to lift the lid on a lot of things and just be very, very honest, if we could, about the processes you go through when you become a pop star, yeah. Because we'd done it, we'd done that ride. So that's pretty much what The Power of Persuasion is about.
How many songs did you have going in? Because you hear these stories of these bands that use all their songs for their first record.
No, and with Beauty Stab there was a lot of talk of the sophomore jinx, you know, the second album syndrome. We did have we scrapped a lot of songs, that were kind of on the shelf for the Lexicon of Love, that weren't used, and started from scratch. So SOS, that was them, King Money, By Default, By Design, they were all new, they were all
Really?
songs.
Wow.
So written in a short space of time.
If I ever thought you'd be lonely.
I think it also gets unfairly tagged as, you know, a rockist album, and it's rock because you still have lush things like If I Ever Thought You'd Be Lonely.
Yeah, it's funny, that song, I once got a postcard from Bono, right, in U2, and he sent me a postcard from Mortello Towers in Dublin, and it was a handwritten, I don't know how he sent it, he must have just known my address or something. He said, because kids, you know, we didn't have social media back then, and he sent me a postcard, and he really liked the song. He was talking about Beauty Stab, and If I Ever Thought You were lonely, he liked the song, but he said you judge a man by his successes and by his failures. And it was a kind of poetic, ambivalent description. I think he liked the record, he must have done if he sent me a postcard. It was nice in a way because a lot of people jumped out and said, I really like this too. There's a band called the Manic Street Preachers, and they said they really like Beauty Stab. We did an instrumental track called Beauty Stab on here, obviously.
Used for Grandstand for quite some time.
Yeah, used in sports TV shows for a long time, So that was our theme tune, And Vertigo was another instrumental track.
The B-side of that was then This Is Now.
We kind of wanted to make the speakers shake, you know, and with Gary Langan, with the team we had in Shepherd's Bush, But there's some uplifting songs on there, but there's some confusing ones. We're in a dark place. We're in the kind of... the hall of mirrors that comes when you first become famous. You know, ask anybody, it can be confusing. So that's what the record's all about, really.
Besides the Manics, you have another fan in this record that you may not expect. Trevor Horn says this album is brilliant.
Okay. I've never really... Trevor was going to produce the album, and then he was kind of hooked up with Owner of a Lonely Heart, and he was finishing off the Yes album. So at that point, we powered on with Gary Langan, who'd recorded the first album. So it would have sounded very different if Trevor had got involved with it, and it would have been a very interesting record.
Here they come, slumming their way out of the jacuzzi.
Here they come, slumming their way out of the jacuzzi. Another great lyric that you're not getting enough credit for on this record.
Thank you. I was kind of looking over my shoulder because all these bands were showing up with the template, and some of it was from the ABC template, you know, and they were kind of ready. We were all kind of charging up the charts. But also, I think by then I was writing lyrics that I thought would look great on T-shirts. Pre-Catherine Hamner.
Pre-Frankie.
So, so I was kind of like, hey, citizen, that's our internationalist call to arms.
Let me defend the album some more, if I may. Hey Citizen, people give you some stick over the Apple Crumble line. Hey Citizen has a great couplet. All through summer, there's no glamour in the slammer. There's no, the splendor's pretty slender. That's really kind of effing brilliant.
Thanks, John. I mean, it was definitely, Beauty Stab is about a reality check. Mm-hmm. And that's definitely what the world was going through in the early 80s, We look back now and we see the kind of big shoulder pads and the big choruses and the big quiffs and evaluate cocktails and that aspirational sort of thing going down. But there was also a whole different feeling in the 1980s of where are we going to? What's 1984 going to look like? George Orwell's version, or is it going to be a better place? Or is it going to be Ronald Reagan's version? That was going on. King Money's on there, which is a bit of an anti-yuppie anthem, really, in a yuppie time of...
with a reggae beat.
Yeah, I guess so. And Bite the Hand, we tried to do Norman Whitfield. We love the Temptations, so there's a string arrangement, but it's a pretty schizophrenic kind of record, so yeah. But in a way, that's kind of the way music went later on, more confused.
I think the presentation is a bit timeless, and by that I mean you're always chained to the gold lame. Zillionaires, Godier, New York club kids. Here you're wearing flight suits, doing mime performances, and you guys look very rockish, and it's something you would see in Silver Lake today.
Do you think so?
I think so.
Yeah, we had the Belstaff jackets, but we used to throw them in the washing machine and kind of fade them and stuff. That was our kind of fashion motif. It was a bit spikier as well, Beauty Stab.
Have you ever thought about adding any more to the set list when you tour from this record?
Yeah, I'd love to play Unzip. That's a kind of soft sell song in my mind.
Would that have been a third single?
Yeah, I think so. How do we... that was Den's in the set, but it would be good to play by default, by design. It's a kind of dramatic, can we do a James Bond theme kind of tune, by default, by design.
It's a great song.
Again, it's kind of quite European, very European sounding record. SOS is a chill out song, before chill out ever existed, really. In a way, it's a prototype to Moments in Love, Art of Noise, beautiful record they made. For me, I got this idea that when I got back to Britain, I thought, it's an island and it's just floating in the sea and no one knows where it's going to. And it's like a big ship. It's like the Titanic driving across the ocean. And that's where the lyric came from for SOS, this idea of a cry for help and stuff,
How much written in the studio, or was it all demoed?
We had a little demo studio up in Sheffield, and coming back from a world tour, so we kind of went from Tokyo to Wapentake, which is an industrial area in Sheffield. It was a massive contrast, but it felt right to get back in the trenches there and kind of start writing some songs.
Going back and listening to it, which
we could have probably relaxed a bit more, John. But we were very evangelical, very uptight. In our early 20s,
Was
Pop
that you
music's
guys,
a
or was
serious business? No, that was us guys.
Was that you, or was that management and the label?
No. I got to say, I wish we had been managed in a way, or the label. But to be fair, any success, any failure, it all landed on our shoulders. I don't like it when bands say, "Oh, well, it wasn't a hit because of the distribution," or who are they kidding? It's the artist's responsibility to come up with some stuff. So I guess. From Transformer, Lou Reed went to Berlin. From Aladdin Sane, Bowie went to Diamond Dogs. That was the kind of transition we were trying to pull off at the time, I think.
I think it's the right move, because you kind of freed, if you had not done Beauty Step, that freed you to experiment further with zillion.
Yeah, very much so. It's great now because on Spotify, I don't know about you, but every artist I follow, you don't follow a linear path of, at the time, you get to number 7 in the charts, you wonder why you're not number 6.
Right.
You don't enjoy it. It's just like, why aren't we number 6 and number 5? It's crazy. But now when I look at, the career of Iggy Pop, I just kind of go into little corners where Iggy was out there, it's kind of interesting pursuing somebody's artistic vision.
Right.
And I think in a way, as an elder statesman of pop all these years on, with ABC people do that too, yeah.
Why no tour?
Well, in a way, we brought the album out and then the band started to dissolve. There's Mark White, Steve Singleton, myself. We worked with Hugo Burnham from the Gang of Four on drums on some shows, but then it kind of gradually just collapsed. And the record is a document of that time, but then it was definitely heads down, move on to the next phase of ABC, the next era, So that's why, in a way, it would have been great to have toured the world playing these songs and the songs of the Lexicon of Love, but it would have been tough to kind of jam it all into one show.
Especially if you toured for a zillionaire, you'd have whiplash.
Yeah. Maybe I should try that now. Yeah.
Right? What was the label's reaction when you turned it in?
Chris Briggs was our A&R guy, and I remember he came down and they said, something, this record has to be finished by, I don't know, September the 18th. It's coming out in November, pre-Christmas, 83.
They wanted you
so
for
it was
Q4.
kind of a little bit of a rush. It's the record where Mark White and myself learned how to produce a record. You learn by making mistakes, and you learn by your triumphs. But I think they must have been pretty confused by it. Yeah. Having said that, though, they seem to like Zillionaire less. That's another story. So they must have been confused in retrospect, as to why we weren't making the same statements we did with All of My Heart and with The Look of Love.
But you didn't have any go back to the studio.
To be fair, though, as I said earlier, they kind of left us to it, And I do think that's an artist's responsibility, to be as stupid and as significant and as smart as they can possibly be, in equal measure.
You don't have any regrets for this, though, do you?
No regrets, really. The regret is we didn't tour.
There's a gang I've just joined.
Speaking of it being a European sounding record, the final track, United Kingdom.
Yeah.
You have a line from Charles I to Charles II to Charles III.
Yeah.
My question is, can you pick my lottery numbers for me?
Okay, yeah. So back in 83, I was thinking, one day Charles II will become Charles III. Right. I didn't realise it would be 40 years later. No one did. And then you start to think about the lineage that goes back to through history. I don't think it was an anti-sort of royalist song, but when you grew up in England, you kind of spoon-fed, kings and queens and all that stuff, But United Kingdom's a kind of pretty dark, fraught song. But it was nice when there was a coronation last year that people did flag up on that song, those lines in that song. I did say, I had been in the time machine for that one.
It's a great album closer. I mean, you think of some of the greatest closing tracks on albums, that for me is up there.
In a way, I would go, if I had a second chance, I'd go back and reorder it.
So it was recorded
sequentially, yeah. Wow. So my abiding memory of United Kingdom is me and Mark in the empty studios at Psalm West with a grand piano, and that was it. It was a swan song on a whole period of time. Mark was playing piano and I was singing live, and that was it. Pretty skeletal, quite a kind of stripped back kind of piece of music.
Couple of takes,
and that was it.
Wow.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, there were some reports that some of your lost masters were found and returned to you, including a track called You and Me, which was supposed to be on this record.
You know what? I can't remember You and Me.
Yeah.
So it must exist somewhere. Maybe it was I don't know. I'd love to hear that stuff. But usually I can remember the stuff that's gone on the cutting room floor.
Were there any tracks left off that you can think of? Because
I can't remember them.
Not, because Vertigo was used as a B-side.
Yeah.
That was kind of an instrumental thing.
No, I can't remember.
Yeah. Are you surprised to hear people like me reevaluate this record and tell you and gush how much they love it?
John, it's flattering, it's a good feeling. For me, at the time, life was moving really fast. And because it wasn't a sort of platinum million seller like Lexicon of Love, it felt like defeat. But in a way, when I come back now, and I do hear people that get some enjoyment from listening to it, yeah, it feels good, yeah.
It went silver in the UK.
Yeah, it did.
That was then, this is now got to number 18, I believe, in the UK.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there will be hundreds and thousands of bands that would love to have a flop like that.
Exactly, yeah. When I listen to it now, it's tight. It's kind of a kind of tight, Manzanera-esque. Phil Manzanera was the guitarist in the guitarist in Roxy Music, so there's a lot of homage to Roxy, very much so. And the other thing I listen to is how English I sound. Yeah, I was born in Manchester, and the band grew up in Sheffield, but it's kind of a very, very kind of focused bit of English curio, this album. And some of the time when I've thought we got it wrong, we got it right. I think with Beauty Stab, we stumbled across something, yeah. I'm proud of the record, yeah.